And I said each and every distribution transformer now will be headed by one person. So administrative changes, also technological changes. So we use something like SCADA. You know SCADA. SCADA is the one which actually tracks the entire chain of events from generation to sub-transmission and distribution. In fact, when you call it transmission and distribution, is a misnomer. Real problem is not transmission and distribution. The real problem is sub-transmission and distribution. So from sub-transmission and distribution end of that, you'll be able to track it completely. Unfortunately, after I had to resign as a power minister, even this program had to resign. So that program didn't take off. We gave money, we spent money. So to that extent, CAG is also happy that we have spent 40,000 crores. And now that 40,000 crores is given to the states. So Chief Minister very happy. They met the minister who gave them checks. So money is spent. So money is spent, so program is successful. But transmission distribution also increased. That time, we had cleaned the balance sheet of all the state electricity boards. This was the biggest ever financial re-engineering in which we cleaned the balance sheet of all the state electricity boards completely. Now, after doing this, and in fact, again, there I had to fight with Reserve Bank of India because we made a tripartite agreement in which any failure on the part of the state electricity board or the state government would mean that we'll be able to invoke the central devolution of funds and we'll be able to recover our power sector dues from that. So that was a deterrent, and that worked. Now, because we gave this money and did not actually operationalize this program, today's state electricity boards are losing 2 lakh crores. So this is criminal. A country as poor as India is spending money as if, we have lakhs of crores which are falling from heaven somewhere. And Prime Minister has not even made a statement on this because 2 lakh crores is too small an amount. Because, coal, 1,76,000 crores, not much. So he has not even commented on it. But point I'm saying is this transmission and distribution, if it was fixed, we could have solved the problems of power sector of India. So you are absolutely right. And we had launched a program in that. So therefore, when I didn't mention it, only because it is not part of the discussion. But that doesn't mean that this is not important. This is most important. And as I said, I would consider it as the most important because I launched that program. And in fact, I keep championing for it that we really need to focus on it. So thank you very much for raising that issue. I agree with you fully. Now the second point about the cost of solar power. You said 10 crore per megawatt. Where you asked, right? So where did you get the number? So anyway, even the number is even higher than that. But let me tell you, typically, when you actually are thinking about electricity, you must look at the delivered cost of electricity. So this is only a capex. What you talk about 10 crores or 11 crores or even it could be 12 crores depending upon location, depending upon the technology. A thermal power plant will cost about 6 crores per megawatt. A hydro will cost about 7 crores per megawatt depending upon the geophysical formations. But in case of thermal, it is the capex. The opex is even more because every time you have to buy coal to generate electricity. In case of solar, you don't have to use any opex because sun does not ask you for royalty. Like your mother will never ask you that I give you food today, now give me 100 rupees. So this is now the sun, the solar energy or the wind, when it blows, it doesn't ask you for, I will now next hour I will go going to blow again if you give me the money for the last 1 month, last 1 hour. So the cost of OPEX is lower. So we really need to look at the delivered cost of electricity. You cannot just compare apple with oranges. We need to compare apple with apple. So OPEX and CAPEX put together is the general cost of electricity. That is first part. Secondly, this CAPEX itself, that's what I was trying to mention. If you scale up the capacity, the CAPEX will go down. The mobile phones, mobile handset was available for 30, 40, 50,000 rupees, or it could even cost 1 lakh rupees. The BlackBerry will never be viable because if only Canada, where the RIM company is located, Canada has only 30 million people, 310 million actually to be more precise. 3.1 crore is the Canada population. So in India, if we are not using or Chinese are not using BlackBerry, the BlackBerry will never be as cheap as it is or it will never be available for the business. So viability depends upon the scaling up of the capacity in terms of more capacity use will bring down the cost. So solar energy today is not even used by 1% of the population of the world. Forget 1%, 0.1%. If once this goes up, automatically the capex will come down. Because more and more people are going to use the equipments, basically PV, for PV only we need actually the panels. But for solar thermal, in fact it is called solar thermal. But the turbines and the operating part is also like the thermal plant, normal thermal plant. So this again is already a settled technology. So that cost will not be very high. So, but point is, these 10 crores or 11 crores or whatever cost it is going to be available today is today's cost. As we completely start scaling up capacity, if we start generating 200,000 megawatts of electricity from there, the cost will obviously come down. And that is how we should try to compare it, not today's cost, but also the cost that is going to happen. But again, you must take the historical cost. You must take the life cycle cost, not just the cost related only to OPEX and CAPEX. Now then, life cycle issue is the one that you mentioned about what happens to the plastic that is used. So very good point. Then how do you, if you want to avoid plastic, I'll be very happy. But then you will not even able to hear me, or I will not able to hear you, because this is also plastic, right? Or will not be able to use a mobile phone because this is also plastic, right? Or some form. So the point is, it is not that we can think about avoiding. Suppose if you, for example, let us look at the larger issue. Where do you use plastic mainly? What are the alternative use to plastic? So, for example, chairs. Now they are, of course, this is a chair which is not plastic chair, but this is a iron chair. But a plastic chair is not going to be used. Plastic furniture is not going to be used. Then we need wooden furniture. Is it less damaging or more damaging? Now, the point is, how do you actually, the question is not whether plastic is obviously not biodegradable. So you're right. But point is, now the question is going to be first, the concept was that something is going to be born in cradle and then it is going to die in grave. Now the whole concept is changing, in which we are saying that cradle to cradle, everything needs to be recycled for all times to come, including cars. Everything that is going to be used in the car is going to be recycled. So that even not just plastic in the car, but also the metals in the car. And therefore recycling is going to be the new mantra. So therefore what you are saying is right, that it's not biodegradable, but at the same time, what is the alternative? Alternative to this, so therefore we don't use solar. So what do we use? We can use coal. Is it a good idea to use coal? So basically the challenge of any management is how to, not to avoid a problem, but how to minimize a problem from what, if it is that big, how can it make it small? The HR manager will be trying to find out that if I don't sack the person, I have this problem. If I sack the problem, still there's a problem because people will go on strike, but I'm now trying to reduce the problem. So therefore, any use of any material, this is a material handling, material management is going to be a very crucial issue in the world to come, is going to be not that can each material be biodegradable. That is not possible. But how can we make less use of material? And that's how the nanotechnology comes into play. And even that is going to happen in case of solar panels. So therefore, how can you produce more with less input and the output will be far higher, one part. And secondly, how can be recycled? So that's a challenge. Sorry, actually, what was that first? Can you speak little loudly? So what is the reversal? No, so what is the reversal? Sorry? So how is the reversal? So if you want to put custom duty on something, what is the reversal? No, no. So if you want to put, anyway, I'll answer it. Okay.
Sir, in last 10 years, we have seen that a lot of private sector participation has been entering into the energy sector, but they have not been able to pick up so well. What is your view that what would be the major challenges in the public-private partnership or a private entity entering into a renewable source of energy? What are going to be the major challenges?
In fact, that's why I was complimenting him for asking that question. What he was asking was, why the private participation has not yielded the type of result that are necessary. Let me explain to you. I'll answer your question. I'll just complete this. See, anytime you generate electricity, it has to be instantaneously transmitted and distributed because electricity cannot be stored today. And that's a new technology hopefully will happen. So therefore, a success of electricity is not just in generation. It's actually in this whole chain of events, which finally gets into consumption of electricity. So the distribution part of electricity is a very critical part. And also more important because the value addition that takes place in the value chain of electricity, generation, transmission, sub-transmission and distribution. If you lose at the end of sub-transmission distribution, that means the maximum value addition about 87 to 88% already taken place on that. And then you lose the entire money. In India, we do not collect even almost half of electricity that is produced. So, we are the most philanthropic country in the world. That we generate electricity, invest everything into that, but we give it to everybody. Anybody can take it. And if you have technology, and we are a very innovative nation, so anybody can steal electricity. So this can happen. So this is a great country that we are, really. And therefore, distribution of electricity is very important. The private sector was not allowed to come into either generation or transmission or distribution. So we made the new law, and I recall, in fact, I'll tell you something, some of you are from industry. I recall the top industrialists. Top means top. Say Ambani, Tata, Birla, Ratan Tata, Mukesh, Anil, even Kumar Mangalam Birla, all of them I had called him once and told him that you will actually disinvest from telecom because that was a fancy of the investor that time and put money into power sector. So like all of you are being so patient listening to me without even protesting that what I'm speaking is nonsense. They also thought he's mad because how can this happen? Power sector, nobody wants to put money. But that same power sector, after I made the new law, everybody wanted to invest into power sector. Even Tata's total group investment in the next 5 years, the strategic plan or 10 years, more than 60-70% is going to be invested into power sector. So the investment interest in power sector increased considerably thanks to that Electricity Act 2003. But I always knew that it's not going to be sustained unless somebody who puts in money has to get the money back. And that can happen only if you work on distribution. And that's a question that he was asking. So therefore, we had launched the APIDB program simultaneously. We had also launched a program for national grid development. We had also I had prepared a paper personally myself, a book called Comprehensive Power Sector Development Program, in which all the elements were there, including research and development, including training, all those issues which are not even thought about. Because it's a holistic development, then only the sector will become viable. So what happened was, a lot of interest came into power sector generation, very clearly because almost all the groups decided to put money into power sector. We decided to quit. Everybody had left power sector. When I became power minister, everybody used to come to tell me that we are quitting power sector. That's how I made the new law. I was there only for 1.5 years, but I made all this. In that, now the success of that investment would have been there had there had been a concurrent, parallel investment into sub-transmission and distribution. So that we didn't do. So now again today, as I said, 2 lakh crores we are losing as telex reports. So if we generate electricity, if we are going to sell it to the same system, which we are not going to get the money back, who is going to make investment? So the success of generation could have been sustained only if we had had a simultaneous policy interventions, particularly not just policy but also operational intervention in sub-transmission and distribution. So that didn't happen. That's the reason one of the problems that we are facing today. Now, it is like PPP, etc. these are all good ideas, but basically we have a proper policy framework. The law is already there. Nobody has even said today, even any private sector company, that there is any problem with the law. In fact, they are saying law is so much ahead. We are talking about open access in the power sector, which is already in the law, which we thought about. So we have thought about almost everything. So Electricity Act 2003 has become model for so many other countries to accept. And these are the laws we have made. So there is no problem with the law. The only problem with the implementation of law. All the states have regulators, all 28 states by law have regulators. There is the electricity policy, which is part of the law, which flows from the law itself. So everything has been taken care of. But now, that doesn't mean that you have done everything that still can happen. You can take horse to the waterfront, but he has to still drink the water, right? So the government doesn't implement. So therefore, there is no problem with any policy. It's the only issue of implementation. That's the problem. Now, talk about, basically, this ultra mega power project, in a way was a flawed, some part was a flawed policy. In fact, that time itself I had pointed out. But anyway, that's a different point. Now, today's issue of putting this huge 23% actually the duty on power equipment imports, I think it's not completely wrong. Because we are importing equipment from China, and Chinese are going to supply electricity, so our domestic manufacturing will completely close down. We have BHEL, then now Larsen & Toubro has come into generation of electricity, JSW is trying to put something, Mitsubishi has already come in. So, if you really want to protect our industry, then we must find out how they will be taken care of. So, if there was 23% duty, which is just recently put, of course, in any case, that is not going to affect the ultra mega power project. That's a prospective one. That's why I was saying there is a policy reversal. So, therefore, this is not going to change the previous. But anyway, whether 23% is right or 24% should have been there or 15% would have been all right, that's an only debatable issue. But domestic manufacturing in India, if has to survive, then we must have countervailing duties, obviously. So all countries do that. And that's what I was saying, if you are doing it in national interest, then you must think about it like this. Or you don't want domestic capacity to come up, is a different thing. Now, there is always an argument against something, and this is a very difficult, fine balance to arrive at. Whether you take consumer interest or you take the manufacturer's interest. Now, for that will be the argument for everything. When you are going to allow imports from other countries, then there is an argument which says that consumer will benefit, but at the end of the day. So if you want the consumer to benefit, then obviously manufacturer will suffer, domestic manufacturers. So we have to make that fine balance. Now we have to really decide. That's why I'm saying whether 16 or 18% or 23%, we have to make that your own judgment. But I don't think that is a reversal of policy as such. I mean, there are always debatable issues. It depends on whom are you talking to. If you're talking to Larsen & Toubro, you're talking to BHEL, they'll say this is a correct thing they have done. If you're talking to Reliance Power, which is going to import equipment from China, they'll say it's a wrong decision. But if Reliance Power itself is going to manufacture capacity, generate, then they will say it's a correct decision. So it depends upon, the reversal of role is not the reversal of policy. So role is reversal, that is important.
Sir, one thing before he says that you kept on saying I'm a chartered accountant and not a technical person to speak on several things, and I was not a minister of renewable energy. But I think you have displayed what a chartered accountant can be when given a chance, and I think you are very good man for